Hello and welcome back. My name is Susan, and I am here to help leaders find their voice and use their voice. Last video, we talked about how to listen without hearing their words. And I told you the follow-up would be, what do we do with that information? So we listened very closely that we could observe what people were actually telling us that had nothing to do with the words that were coming out of their mouth. So now that you have compiled that information, you should be looking at very clear evidence. It's a clear story of the person's behavior, their skills, their motivation perhaps, but you should know what are they doing and what do you need to do to effectively lead them through. So here's what you're going to do. 3 steps, just like we had 3 steps before. 3 steps. First of all, what you're going to do is share your observations. You have been observing and taking in information so that you could listen to that person's performance. Now it's time to share. And in doing that, what I would ask you to do is take what you have found, put it next to the person's job description. If you don't have a job description, we'll talk about that at another time. And then see if they line up. Are they lining up in every area? Are they lining up in most areas? Is the person hitting the standards but just barely? Are they hitting the standards far beyond what you would expect? This is what you need to compile when you are by yourself before you try to communicate this to a person. If you don't have your own plan to communicate it, it's going to be poorly executed and your staff member will be confused and possibly hurt and possibly decide they don't want to do this anymore. So it's really important that you have your plan first. What do I mean by objective information? If you've been watching someone in their performance and you see holes, right? And holes could be, let's say they're doing about 40% of what you need them to do. The 40% needs to be labeled very clearly. This might be coming to work on time. This might be communicating well with the customer. This might be really good at filing paperwork. Maybe their phone skills are impeccable. I don't know. But you need to be able to identify that clearly. That has nothing to do with how you feel about the person. It's objective related to the job function. Then you need to take that 60% and you really need to label clearly and identify what functions are not being accomplished. This could be perhaps a follow-up. Someone does real good getting to a certain place and then they just stop and they go on to the next task and fail to follow up as they are supposed to with the first 5 steps. I'm just giving you examples. Make it fit however you need to make it fit. The point is, whatever those tasks are, you have to clearly state what they are, state if they are meeting the task, and state if they are meeting it at, below, or above your expectations. So once you have that clearly communicated, it's time to move on to the next step. The next step, after you have got all of your information together, you need to sit with the person and you need to communicate expectations. This is the time where you have face-to-face. You've done all your prep work. Now you have face-to-face and you unpack it for that person. I suggest before you go all in and just start communicating what you found and what you expect, make sure you create a space that is physically and psychologically safe. What does that mean? Physically, make sure they're comfortable. Make sure they don't feel like they're positioned in a way that they feel trapped. I mean, if you have a really small room to do this in and it's just awkward setup, make sure you're making them as comfortable as possible, but also making sure that you are positioned properly so that you're not compromising your safety either. Psychologically, you want to make it safe by just having a moment to connect before you deliver the content. Connect with them. How are you today? How are you feeling coming to this meeting? Tell me a little bit about, what are some of your wins that are going on lately? Get them comfortable. And then once you have broken the ice a little bit, then you can explain. Part of my job as your supervisor is to give you really meaningful and productive feedback. I could just come in here and tell you that you're doing amazing and everything's awesome, which is very true in some areas, if it's true. But that wouldn't really give you something that's meaningful, because then you wouldn't know where you need to grow and develop. Does that make sense? Ask them. Does that make sense? Same thing with the negative stuff. If you don't have anything real negative to share, let them know right ahead. Otherwise, they're going to be waiting for the entire time you're talking for that bomb to just fall on their lap. So let them know, listen, before we get into this, I just want to say we've got some great things to talk about here. I just want to assure you that there's nothing that's below minimum standard here. There's nothing that I have issue with. You're doing a great job. It's still my job to give you really good, accurate, effective communication so that you and I can discuss together what are your wants, what are your needs, how do you grow, what are your preferred methods of training and development, all of that stuff. That will really help frame that conversation so that you can give your feedback effectively. They can take it in and then give them space. Stop every once in a while. Pause for a minute. Let them digest and say, does this make sense with you, for you? Does this resonate with you? Do you have any questions about that? Are we aligned in how we are both observing this particular skill set? People will do one of two things when they have to reflect on their own behavior and performance. They will either way far overestimate their own abilities, or they'll way far underestimate. It's really hard for people to just reflect both the strengths and the weaknesses. I don't know why that is. It just is. So you have to kind of guide them on that tour without making them feel like it's a personal attack or a strike on their character, or like, we don't really want you here, but we have to deal with you. People have those negative stories all the time. That is not what we do. We check in. We make sure they're doing okay. So a couple times throughout this discussion, you want to make sure you're hanging in there, because they're probably going to be reacting to things that might not have anything to do with your words. You're going to strike something that feels like, oh, okay. So make sure they're still with you. Make sure they're still listening. Make sure it's still resonating for them. And if it doesn't make sense to them, say, okay, this is all right. This is what we do here. We have healthy conversations. If you do not agree with me, please tell me where you think I'm off, and let's talk about it. Maybe you see their point of view. Maybe whatever they have to say does not sway you to change how you rated that area, but it gives you that space to connect and talk and further drill down on what the expectation is. If someone is brave enough to share with you that they think you're wrong or that you got it wrong about them, communicate back to them, calm, cool, objective, and fair, what the expectation actually is and how they are not meeting it. And again, if they are exceeding it, then tell them that. But if they're not exceeding it, don't freak out because you feel like everything is going south and you just want them to feel better. So you just start telling them, oh, you're great at this and you're great at that. Because if they're not, you just lost all your credibility and your integrity, and you didn't help that person grow a bit. This is hard work. It's hard. We say communication is the basis of all things, and it is, especially at work, especially when you're leading people. But there's really nothing easy about it. It sounds easy. Observe, make a plan, communicate it back. But when you're interacting with people, that's where it gets real. It gets real. It's like really real. And it can be scary. So the more that you're creating that space for someone else to feel safe, you're doing yourself a favor as well. You're keeping your own heartbeat regulated. You're keeping your own voice still, calm, level, and you're just being real. And if someone says something to you that you just don't know what to do with because you don't know how to respond, then just let them know. That's an interesting point, or that's a great point, or gosh, I didn't think about that, or I didn't expect you to raise that point today. Can we put that to the side for now? I really want to give that the time it deserves. Let's come back to that tomorrow at 3 or something like that. That way they feel validated. You will give it the time, and you can continue on with why you met in the first place for this particular meeting. You're meeting to communicate feedback about your observations of their performance. So the third thing is going to be, after you've had your plan, after you've got everything ready, you've set the stage, and you communicate your findings, your observations, all of what you need to say back to the individual, the third step is going to be set the next meeting time. And that sounds way too simple. It sounds like it's not even necessary to say, but I am telling you, you can get so concerned and so worried about having this meeting that you say all these things and then you just part ways. And it might be another month or two before you talk to the person again. I would hope not, but it happens. Everyone's understaffed. Everyone's under-resourced. Everyone has things clawing for their attention. So if you really want to keep this whole conversation effective, schedule the next meeting before that person leaves that meeting with you. Schedule it for maybe 2 weeks from that day. You really want to give people time to digest, and you want to give them time to figure out if they have any other questions, and give them time to start applying the feedback and the suggestions that you've made to them. So in 2 weeks, let's look at our calendars. Let's come back here at such and such time. And when we meet, I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. I'm looking forward to see how you are applying this information. And I want you to notice if you have questions, write them down in the next 2 weeks. Bring them back to me. We have to make sure we are constantly aligned and that you know what the expectations are for your performance. That matters so much to me. I don't want you to lose sight of it. I don't want me to lose sight of it. Are you comfortable with the plan that we have in place? Do you have what you need? Are you going to take notes on your phone? Do you need a notebook? Do you have everything you need? Just spell it out, unpack it, and they know exactly what to expect. Oh, and you probably also want to say, if of course, before we meet again in 2 weeks, something is just burning and you need to ask me a question, this is how I am available to you. Don't hesitate to email me. Don't hesitate to come knock on my door. Give me a call. I don't want you sweating this out. I want you to go and do the wonderful work that you're doing and be able to freely grow day after day after day. So if anything is in the way, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Does that seem doable? It almost sounds like, too simple, because I think we have a tendency to overcomplicate. We think if we're doing good leadership, we're doing something that no one else is doing. And I'm here to tell you, when you do basic foundational skills, communicate, set clear expectations, follow up, care for your people, let them know how accessible you are, and you are consistent with that, you don't need to reinvent any kind of wheel. You just don't. Anything that's happening, good or bad or anywhere in between, pull from those resources and trust yourself to deliver in your language, in your speech, in your skills, because you are leading for a reason. You are here on purpose. You have a voice. It is very unique. It is yours and yours only, and you need to use that voice. So keep working at it. Keep developing it. Keep practicing. If you're not practicing, it's going to rust right up and it'll be just rotting away somewhere. Don't do that. Don't let yourself do that. The more you practice using your voice, applying it, and growing people so that they can then do the same, Whew, that is peaceful. You will be at peace. So I am excited to hear from you. What I would love for you to do, if one nugget of this worked for you, if one nugget sounds like you're going to try, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. I would love to see you back here. Any questions you have, throw them in the comments. I'll make a video just for you. Until then, find your voice, use your voice, protect your peace.